welcome to another session of the Emergency Home Learning Summit. My name is Mahlaqa Saeed. I am a business and economics teacher from Pakistan, and I'm really glad to be part of the Home Learning Summit. I've earlier been part of many sessions at the Learning Revolution, and I think it's an excellent way of teachers, head teachers, curriculum coordinators, any member who belongs to the educational management segment of their country to learn from each other, to gain insights into what's happening across the world, and maybe through a little bit of educational exchange, we can make the world of our little learners a little bit better. These are definitely very challenging times, not just for us, but also for our young learners. Whether our students are in kindergarten or are troubled teenagers like mine, this is definitely a time in which, in addition to helping students come up with their learning levels, in enabling students to come out of their isolated, caves that they are drawn into as a result of these very unique times. I think that we as educators play a very important role in honing those skills that students may have but are unable to explore, especially at times when they are so far away from what they know as the normal of life. So, I'm going to start with a little bit of introduction of what I'm going to talk about today. The topic of my session is developing student leaders for a better tomorrow. Um, well, this is the generation that is going to be responsible for many future generations. There is a lot of good that's happened in the past few years, but then there's a lot of bad that's happened as well. There are a lot of inventions that have taken place. There's a lot of advancement that has taken place. But then there has been much harm to the environment as well. So it's imperative for students to realize that they have a very important role in shaping the future that belongs to them and the generations that come much after them. So, in this gloom and doom time in which school closures have, in a way locked our students inside their homes, away from their friends, away from the norm that they knew, I think this has also been a time of a lot of self reflection, a lot of knowledge, and hopefully a lot of empathy for what's happening around the world. Even though a lot of us may not have realized, some time ago, at least a year ago, that there are certain common challenges that we are facing around the world, something like climate change, environmental hazards, depletion of resources, but COVID 19 has brought us together, I think, the entire world together, and especially, I think, educators around the world as a common community. We've been able to exchange a lot of learnings with each other. On the other hand, our students, I think, have also had the chance of, when they're locked out from what was a norm of their life, this is also an opportunity to open up their minds, to open up their eyes, to open up the very discussion of different kind of ideas that do exist as a global challenge in the very same way as COVID-19. So, with the hope that I'd be able to generate a little bit of awareness in my students, um, with regards to another global challenge other than COVID 19, which is climate change, I started a small project and I'm now hoping that our little project is going to reach out to many others, and everybody will realize that the important role they can play in not just bringing out their own leadership skills, but also play a very important part in shaping the world that is destined for a better tomorrow. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about my project called Heal the World. It's actually a student project, and they've been really amazing at taking active participation in it, and so motivated and so enthusiastic. It's just amazing to watch them. So the aim was to involve students in a project that affects the entire globe, and try and bring out their leadership skills, their problem solving skills, enable them to realize what aspects of critical thinking that they could apply to a real life problem. And even though they may be distanced from a lot of people that they really know, but virtually they've been able to come together, work as a group. And now that the project has I would not say completed, but completed its initial steps, we are now at a stage at which I think that this group of students that has worked on Heal the World is now able to realize its own ability to come up with solutions to different kinds of problems, and at the same time have learned the importance of being able to reach out to other people and just generate awareness, generate empathy. So I'm going to quickly start off with um, these very five important, beautiful words, the 5 E's of inquiry based learning. I learned about these when I was myself attending one of the sessions of CPD, and I found them very interesting and very helpful in being applied to the classroom. So we start off with engaging students. You could provide them with perhaps a video, a concept, even a mathematical word problem, just to gauge their attention, just to get them involved, just to. And I think that's a very big challenge in a hybrid situation, in a virtual situation. It was there in our brick and mortar a model, but even more so when your students are really not motivated, sitting at home with their cameras switched off. So the first, I would say, icebreaker in being able to reach out to them is being successful in engaging them and getting their attention. So, anything that works for you, anything that works for the topic that you're involved in, anything that works for you in terms of the tools that you might like to use. I like to use a lot of documentaries. For collaborative work, I use Padlet a lot. So, anything that you think is applicable for your age specific, your subject specific, or sometimes it's not just related to a particular subject. In my case, it wasn't just about economics or business. It was about getting students to spend at least 5 to 10 minutes of every class thinking about global problems and coming up with solutions. So once we got that done, the second step could be explore together, explore individually, explore as a group, think, pair, and share, come up with different ways of investigating, of inquiring, of trying to understand the depth of the problem. Once they would understand a problem, and hopefully by the second or third stage, they've started realizing how they are in a way, masters of their own learning. They are responsible for their own learning. They don't just find out a problem, they come up with a solution. So, when they're working towards finding problems, encourage them to look for solutions. Explain to them wherever they need any help. And the next level is hopefully going to be students coming up with solutions, they being able to apply and reapply whatever they've learned. Now, in my case, I'll give you the example of this particular project in detail, but in my case, it was um, successful in the sense of getting students to explain and elaborate in their own words, because they were conducting online research, and based on that research they were trying to explain that problem to another group of classmates, sometimes to even a broader group. So, like they say, when you try and explain something, you tend to become a greater master of that very concept. And in this way, they were not only able to find out what's wrong with the world right now when it comes to climate change, they were able to come up with some very good suggestions on what are the steps one can take in reducing the carbon footprint. And finally, after elaborating and explaining, they'd be able to trace back their steps through some small activities, or a thinking process, or maybe some tools you could use. In my case, I really like the use of traffic lights or exit tickets or mood boards, in which students can simply express how they feel about the project, or they feel about a class or a session, and then be able to reflect upon their own thinking, maybe a reflective journal. But before that, I'm going to talk just a little bit about metacognition and its role in developing student leadership. Well, even though it's a buzzword for CPD in the past couple of years, um, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of what metacognition is. In simple words, we could say metacognition is thinking about your own thinking. And hopefully, with the right kind of guidance, it enables learners to become responsible for their entire learning process, with the teacher being a facilitator. And students would no longer blame themselves for not being able to understand something, because they are now aware of their own individual, very specific thinking process, which might be different for 30 different students sitting in one classroom. So it gives them a sense of control over their learning. It With the right amount of practice, and it's very simple. I mean, it's not really some rocket science. Those of you who I'm just going to explain a little bit for those of you who may not be aware of the concept. It's just about making students realize that there are different ways to reach a common goal, for them being able to realize that how finely the neurons in our brains are connected, that each time we come across something similar, it's in a matter of even less than a few seconds, that our brain starts sending messages across for us to realize this has been our learning path. And when students become aware of this process, like for instance, for somebody it might be easier to remember dates. For another student, maybe making a mind map helps them better. For another student, maybe writing down pointers helps. My daughter, she learns her times tables by dancing to a tune. So it's just realizing your individual strength, your individual learning pattern, and being able to reapply it. And with practice, well, I still don't believe we do become perfect, but hopefully, with the right amount of practice, it promotes deeper learning, greater understanding, enables students to become critical thinkers, um, and then along with a little bit of use of some tools like reflective journals, exit tickets. You can easily find them even on Google Forms now. There are entire templates out there that could just be used in a classroom. So when students start to reflect on their own thinking and their own understanding, it gives them a sense of great confidence. I've actually practiced this, and in the beginning, I found a lot of insecurity within my own self, not being confident if my students are going to catch up to it in this hybrid model. When I would upload videos and ask students, go through the video. If you come up with questions, post them in the classroom. And if you understand, whatever you understand, just write a reflective paragraph about it. And to be honest, in the beginning, I thought that, oh my God, I'll get so many questions, and so many of my students may not be able to answer the questions I put up at the end, or they may not be able to be successful in their reflective writing, or my exit ticket is going to have, so many sad emojis and red traffic lights and whatnot. But no, things really got better with time. In the past 6 months, I've really seen students develop their own way of learning, their own individual pattern of learning. And a lot of sad faces on my mood boards or my exit tickets have turned into smileys. So, even though there might be a common goal, every student is going to have their own path of reaching their goal. And where teachers are generally expected to know the learning path of each and every student, the strengths and the weaknesses, and we try to work with different groups in different ways. And we have a small group in which we are helping the more abled ones a little less, and helping the less abled ones a little more. Well, now students become aware of their own strengths and weaknesses, and they become more conscious of where they need to put in more effort. When they work in groups, when they work in pairs, they're able to transfer their learnings with each other. Again, I've successfully seen a lot of peer work being shared, a question being given in class, students solve it, teacher tells the answer, wham bam, thank you bam. Really, it's I'm sorry to use this, but it's really not something that processes what is required to be processed. One of the traditional methods I've often seen in classrooms is where teachers just ask a couple of students to share their best answers. That's really killing the self-esteem of those students, uh, who we term as less abled ones. They will never become the more abled ones. So, from personal experience again, and a very humble and a very limited experience, I must share, but full of a lot of, I've experimented a lot of things. So I love to share those, and I hope that it can help a lot of other students who might be fighting with self-esteem issues. So when they work in groups, when they work in pairs, sometimes learning the right answer from the partner sitting next to you or from a friend, it just builds your self-esteem more as compared to a teacher telling you that so and so is right and you're not. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. I think it's taken me 6 months with a group of students. So hopefully by the end of a quarter, or the end of a session, or the end of a semester, students will then be able to have enough confidence that they are now communicating their own knowledge, not with each other or the partner sitting next to them, or writing, making these small doodles in their notebook, but it builds their degree of confidence to speak before an audience. So, some basic ideas on how to build metacognition in the classroom: think alouds, mind maps, traffic lights, whatever works for you according to your grade level. according to the subject you have and according to your own comfort level. I love KWL charts. And it's something that I generally start at the beginning of a topic. Students fill that in, what they know about the topic, what they want to know about the topic, and what they aim to learn about the topic at the end. It's the last column that interests me the most because I've seen that a lot of times uh, students fill in the last column with such varied items that are not even part of the curriculum, and they're still interesting stuff to share. And yeah, it becomes a challenge to complete your curriculum on one hand and complete the wish list of your students on the other hand. But being able to, just guide students in the direction in which they become responsible for this added learning without taking away your teaching time, uh, that's a confidence booster for them as well. A lot of times we might be afraid that the learning has to come from us. And what if I can't finish it off in my 40-minute period or my XYZ number of sessions per week, per month, per semester? A lot of times, a lot of things that the students want to learn, they can do it on their own. They can share it with their friends, they can share it with their peers, they can share it with the rest of the world, and you can just be there and applaud them in the audience. Another idea of enabling students to become better leaders, I think a step back, taking this a step back, is first building up their self-esteem. I don't think, unless and until Superman realized his real powers, or Wonder Woman knew that if she crossed her arms, there'd be these, big superpowers coming out of their being. So, for students to realize that they have these superpowers, we can't wave a magic wand. They have to realize it on their own. And sometimes they'd have to fall a bit and get up again. So this is another small activity that you could probably try at the beginning of a session. You could ask students to draw or imagine themselves as a superhero, or you could ask them to write a goal for themselves that they hope to accomplish, a superhero goal that they hope to accomplish. Now, this could be for the entire year. This could be for your particular subject, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, and then post all of those goals perhaps on the class softboard if you are in a hybrid system right now, or you could have a Padlet wall where everybody posts their goals. Anything that you could use from here, maybe a goal for themselves, and 6 months down the road they could write a piece of reflection and they could say, oh, this has been the story of my transformation. I wanted to be Wonder Woman because I wanted to do this. These are the superpowers I wanted to gain. These are the superpowers I have gained. This is my kryptonite. This is what I overcame. So this sense of general well-being will build up their own confidence, and then that's when comes the next step, what I'm going to talk about next: helping students realize they can be a leader who can shape a better tomorrow. So, in addition to being a 21st century core skill, student leadership is, I would say, just an essential in today's times. Not just because they need to survive in a more challenging era than we all have, also because tomorrow's world is going to need a lot of problem solvers, a lot of critical thinkers, and somehow I actually feel that this generation has not seen a lot of difficulties or a lot of hardships, or God forbid, I wouldn't wish those, but Other than that, I think our childhood was tougher. Playing on the streets, falling down. Today's child is probably just sitting in their room the whole day with a screen in front of their hands. So they really need to get out there and become aware of what's happening around the world. They need to connect more. They need to connect more within their own circles. They need to connect more uh, within their own environment and become responsible global citizens. For that, they need to realize the global problems that exist in today's world. So, here we have another bunch of buzzwords, and chances are you probably know more about them than I do. Bloom's taxonomy, ranging from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills, uh, enabling students to be able to solve some easy questions and then some difficult questions, and enhance their critical thinking skills and bring a blend of questions to students. Ask the easy questions in the beginning, keep some difficult questions towards the center of your session. Hinge questioning, different kind of questioning techniques, keeping open-ended questions on one side, closed-ended on one side, encouraging a lot of deep learning so that students' critical thinking and problem solving skills are enhanced. Well, they're all very nice words. And yes, they do build great student leaders. But how to do that in real life? So I'm going to just talk a little bit about a student leadership action plan that we developed in our school. This was for the since I teach economics and business studies to grades 9 through 11, the plan was also intended towards all of these grade levels. Using the 5 e-learning cycle, we started with engaging students, showed them a small documentary on climate change. My favorite is David Attenborough's documentary, which is available on BBC, but I'm sure there are many others out there. One student watched, the student groups watched this video. That was the first step of realizing a global problem. Then we started talking about other global problems that could exist. The next step was asking students to and this is a project that went on for a few weeks, and we are now in the final phase of it right now. So students then started exploring the web themselves. They started looking for different kinds of news articles. They started looking for other documentaries. They started looking for video clips on YouTube, and then they had to explain it in their own words. They could write articles about them, share those articles with me, and then post those articles to newspapers, hoping to get them printed. Then there is a Padlet wall on which they started working collaboratively. So the same wall, and we had students of econ, we had students of business, we had students of 9, 10, 11 different sessions during the day, sometimes different sessions during the week. And when they worked collaboratively, they witnessed that some students were more comfortable in writing a small post. Somebody was making a video. Somebody was, some people even sketched their own versions of what they understand from climate change. And this is how, after sharing their own little bit of exploration, students also got to learn what their friends might have posted, what strangers might have posted. And this is where the cross learning began. They started commenting on each other's posts, they started asking each other questions, and this whole forum of discussion began. Once they were more comfortable working with this internal group, because even though they may not be seeing each other every day, this became a platform where they could talk about one particular topic which was of interest to, I'd say, more than 300 students. So this is a platform on which uh, some may or may not, communicate as much as the others. I must say there were some silent observers as well, but it got at least 70% of them involved. Some were just posting, some were just commenting, some were doing both. But it just enabled them to have something other than their regular school work to talk about, to learn about, to exchange ideas about. And then finally, they had to come up with solutions. They had to talk about what are the habits in their everyday lives that they can adopt so that they can bring about a change. They looked at the case studies of different firms, they looked at the case studies of different countries and their governments and the steps that have been undertaken collaboratively, individually, so that somehow the carbon footprint can be reduced. We may not be very successful in the short term in reversing climate change, but they did come to realize that even though there is a global problem and we've all been talking about climate action for many years now, there are many small steps that each one of us can take. So, at the level of evaluation, students started reflecting on what they had learned about climate change, what can they do, and what can they continue doing. And this is where they realized that a general awareness of younger people is something which may not be as much as desired. And that's where we came up with the idea of our own Twitter handle for the project. It's Heal the World, HTW underscore 2030. And each time a student comes up with a bit of research, they come up with some idea, they come up with anything that they'd like to generate social media awareness for. They shared that with me. We uploaded on the Twitter handle. And this is how we are trying to bring about a general level of awareness. Um, I personally think that this particular group of students may or may not be directly responsible for changing the face of the world and how we see it right now. But I'm pretty sure that the past few months that they've been involved in this project has definitely given them this degree of self confidence that when there are problems, there are solutions. They, through this program, have been able to connect with each other at a time where connection seems very difficult in a normal form. So this platform on which this small group of students have worked together has not only enhanced their leadership skills, their problem solving skills, but has been a great tool in helping to give a singular way, a singular platform for them to talk about a topic which is common for all of us, which is highly significant, and being able to come up with solutions has, I think, reflected also in their academics in a lot of ways. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit of an experience that I wanted to share. And if you would like to connect with me further, here are my contact details and our Twitter handle for the project Heal the World, HTW underscore 2030. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I hope that you've enjoyed this session.